Hello everypony! Today we're taking it back to basics and I'm gonna explain every skill, buff, and debuff in Twisted Wonderland so far. This is just every skill as of January 2026. We might and probably will get more in the future, but for now, this is what we have in-game. But before we get into explaining every single skill, we have two concepts to explain. Damage versus attack, and Nullify versus cut versus resistance. These are very super important distinctions that need to be made, so we're starting with these. So damage and attack/power are not the same thing in Twist. Attack/power is like a card's stats. It's how hard a card can hit at a base level with no buffs or skills or debuffs or any extras. It is your card's power default. Damage is the result of your card's power plus any buffs or debuffs. It's what happens to cards. Think of it like this. Attack is sugar, damage is cake. When you mix sugar with other ingredients, it becomes cake. They're very similar, but it's important to know the difference between the two because while they sound similar, power boost and damage boost do very different things. Our second concept to explain is Nullify versus resistance versus cut. Nullify, or immunity as it's called in JP, is what it says on the tin. It nullifies certain debuffs so those debuffs don't do anything. Nullification doesn't remove debuffs, but it makes them useless. So if you're hit with a debuff that makes spells miss, if you activate a skill that nullifies that debuff, your spells will hit normally. Nullify does what it says. Nullify. Cuts directly affect damage. It's essentially manipulating that damage number to begin with and lowering it so the end number isn't as high as it could be. Resistance lowers the amount of damage received. From my understanding, the difference between this and cut is that cut targets a specific character and lowers their damage output. Resistance, as far as I can tell, just makes someone not as susceptible to ouchies. Although I'm not going to get into it fully because I don't have the formula, but damage is the result of a calculation, and cut goes into that formula. As far as I'm aware, resistance is not in the formula and only happens after the calculation has happened. That's my understanding of it, but I'll be very honest that I'm not 100% certain on that. I could very well be misinterpreting it, but the bottom line is that while cut and resistance and Nullify 2 are all very similar to each other, they're different and do different things. So that's all the concepts I feel like we need to cover before getting into skills, so now let's actually get into some. We're gonna start off big. We're gonna be talking about the damage category of skills, buffs, and debuffs. This is going to be long, but I have stuff timestamped in the description, so if you want to move around, you can. So yeah, let's start off with the most extensive category and work our way down. Stuff under the damage umbrella, unsurprisingly, affects damage. This means that it's affecting output and not power stats and stuff like that. First up, we have damage boost, which increases damage. This is the most common skill in game, with 160 cards having this skill. That's 33% of cards in the game. Yes, I literally counted how many cards have this, and yes, I did this with every single skill. I am a crazy person. Damage cut is another common skill that lowers damage. 128 units have this skill, making it the fourth most common skill in game. Damage resistance lowers damage received. While a character's damage output remains the same, the character receiving that damage just doesn't get all of it. I believe EN just refers to it as resistance, so if you hear either of those terms, it's the same thing. JP is just more specific about it. This is a fairly uncommon skill. 18 cards have it. JP currently has like 500 cards, so yeah, like, very uncommon. Also, if you're trying to keep track of what's rare and what's not, I'm gonna kind of cover that all at the way end, so don't worry about keeping track of that stuff. Nullify damage, aka damage immunity, nullifies, quote, all incoming attack damage according to the wiki.gg. So basically, spells won't do anything. Whoever has this activated is just not going to get any HP taken away. This isn't a skill that any card has, and it's extremely rare in-game. The Twist Gameplay Tumblr, who are the real experts on this, so again, I can't really recommend them enough. They only have 2 instances of this listed, and one of them is in the prologue, so yeah, you're probably not going to be running into this or the variants very often, but this is a thing that exists. And also, unfortunately, as of now, it's not something you could get for yourself. We also have vulnerability or damage vulnerability. This means whoever's on the receiving end is going to be more susceptible to hits and they're going to take on more damage. Essentially, it's helping damage output. This is another rare skill with only 5 cards that have it. Those are all the basic damage skills, buffs, and debuffs, so let's chat about the elemental variants of this. There's like loads of elemental variants of what we just talked about, which is why the damage category stuff is so much bigger than the others. It's already big anyway, but when you have elemental differences, the numbers just swell. For explaining everything, I'm just going to use water as an example, but this applies to all the elements, like just swap out water for fire or flora or void. Water Boost or Water Damage Boost raises damage specifically for water. What this means is that if you're fighting a fire enemy, water is strong against fire, so that enemy is going to take more damage because it's not just a damage boost, but it's adding to that elemental advantage, it's adding that into the mix and heightening that. Also, heads up, I'm using Void and Cosmic interchangeably. I just realized I should probably point this out. I'm using Void and Cosmic interchangeably because in JP it's referred to as Void, so I'm more used to calling it Void. EN does call it Cosmic, but so yeah, I'm gonna try and call it Cosmic, but heads up, I'm just gonna be using them interchangeably. So back to the boosts, right? So Fire Boost does this with Fire, Flora Boost with Flora, and Void Boost with Void. Obviously, since Void isn't a part of the Elemental Triangle, it's not really giving the Elemental advantage like the other three are, but it is a thing, and I guess if we get enemy units that are weak to Void, this is where those cards will shine. 15 units have Flora Boost, and 10 have Cosmic, Water, and Fire Boost, individually. So yeah, they're fairly rare. In addition to boosting skills, we also have skills that lower damage. Like there's Elemental Damage Boost, there's also Elemental Damage Cuts. This means that incoming elemental damage gets lowered depending on what element the skill specifies. So Water Cut will lower incoming water damage. Yeah, these skills are far more rare than the damage boosts. While the elemental boosts had 10 to 15 cards, these have 1 to 4. Yeah, they're very rare. We have Resistance next. To quote the wiki.gg wikia, these skills, quote, decrease the amount of damage taken from insert element here, attribute magic. Water resistance lowers damage taken from water magic, so again, interfering with the advantage factor. This is not a skill, but it's a buff that you can get in battle sometimes. We also have elemental vulnerabilities, which make units take more damage from elemental spells. So water vulnerability makes a unit take more damage from water spells, fire vulnerability does this with fire, and so on and so on. This is a debuff, so no unit has this just right off the bat. And finally, we have elemental immunity. I know it feels like there's been a lot for elements, and there has been, but this is the last one we have to discuss. Elemental immunity, which I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure what EN calls it, but it's probably something like Nullify Water or Nullify Fire or something, negates all incoming elemental damage, to paraphrase the wiki.gg. So for water immunity, it renders all water damage as 0, meaning you're not going to take any elemental damage from units. You still have normal damage to worry about, but elemental stuff is taken out of the equation. Like its counterpart, the elemental vulnerability, this isn't a skill, it's a buff. I know that this was a lot to talk about, but this was the largest category, and now that we have this done, we can move on to literally everything else. There are 2 power skills in game, Power Boost and Power Drain. Power Boost raises your card's attack stat. This is the second most common skill, with 155 units having this skill. Power Drain lowers a card's attack stat. It doesn't lower your own, it only applies to enemies. I mean, you can get hit with this, it is also a debuff, but if a card has it, that drain only applies to enemy units. This is another very common skill. There's 136 cards with it, making it the 3rd most common skill. Our next category is my favorite, healing. There are 2 healing skills, HP Restoration and HP Regeneration. Restoration, as the name suggests, restores some of your HP. This is a one-time thing. Regeneration, on the other hand, heals over multiple turns. 35 units have HP Regeneration and 70 have HP Restoration. So kind of a middle ground when it comes to rarity for regeneration, but for restoration, it's actually the 5th most common skill. This isn't a skill, but a potential buff you can get in battles is an HP boost, which just increases a card's HP stat. So Curse sort of goes hand in hand with HP and healing. Curse's official description is that it negates any potential healing, but anecdotally that shit does take away HP. This is both a skill and a debuff you can get. As a skill, 30 cards have it, and of course as a debuff, it can just pop up anywhere. There is Curse Immunity / Nullify Curse. It doesn't remove any applied instances of Curse, it just means the effective curse won't work anymore and you can still heal. One of the most useful skills is Debuff Removal. This gets rid of any debuffs currently applied to said unit and or the entire team. I love this skill very much, and it's fairly rare. Only 14 units have it. Debuff Removal does have a counterpart, but it's not a skill, it's a buff. Or rather, a debuff. Buff Removal gets rid of any nice effects you currently have going on. So if you get hit with Buff Removal and you're currently using Power Boost and Evasion, at that very moment, not anymore. It'll get rid of Power Boost and Evasion. I will admit I don't know if this is for a few turns or for the whole duration of a battle or both, that sort of situation, but it will affect you at least for a little while. It's pretty rare as far as I know. I honestly can't think of like a time that I've been hit with it, but I'm pretty sure I probably have in the past. It's just, I don't remember it. But it is something to watch out for. Let's talk about miscellaneous stuff that didn't really make up their own category, and I couldn't find like a good transition to talk about them in the script, so they're just going here. Critical or crit chance is a skill that can potentially double an attack's damage. It's not a guaranteed thing. Crit chance, like the name suggests, gives you a chance to do critical damage. This is a very rare skill with only 5 units having it. Evasion or evasion boost means a character can dodge an attack and therefore get no damage. 26 units have this as a skill, but I think you can also get it as a buff sometimes. Metal, or guts as JP calls it, means the unit will survive with 1 HP. So say if a unit has 100 HP and they get hit with something over 100, so like something that would take them out, they're still going to survive, and they'll just have like 1 HP left. Essentially, this is a way to ensure units have one more chance to like survive or do damage or whatever. This is both a skill buff and debuff. You can get this in battles, but your enemies can as well. Burn is a debuff that makes units lose HP at the end of a turn. Nullify burn, or burn immunity, doesn't remove burn, but it means that burn doesn't do anything. It's not going to cause damage so long as the nullify burn is in effect. Freeze is a debuff that blocks buffs from being applied, so if you have freeze on you, you can't invoke evasion or crit chance or anything until it's either removed or nullified, which leads me to nullify freeze, which cancels out freeze. Blind is one of the rarest skills in-game and actually just became a skill last year, and not even like a full year. It was originally a debuff, and it has the power to nullify damage. So basically, it's a chance to have someone's attack not do anything. It's like critical, though, where it's not a guaranteed thing, there's just a chance. Like a lot of other things, it has a counterpart, nullify blind / blind immunity, which cancels blind out. Okay, so we've covered a lot, but before we go, let's just get into some mindless stuff, and here's a recap of skill rarities and stuff. The top 5 most common skills are damage boost, power drain, damage cut, and HP restoration. The top 5 rarest skills have a lot of ties, to be honest. The rarest skills are blind, flora cut, guts, fire cut, cosmic cut, water cut, critical, and vulnerability. And then if you're interested in other things, here's the full table. I'm not going to read the whole thing out loud, though, but if you're curious about other things, here's the full information. And those are all of, or at least most of, the current skills, buffs, and debuffs in Twisted Wonderland. I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while, but as you can tell, it took a lot of research and I was only able to start on it last month. I just hope that this helps when it comes to battles and stuff. If you guys have any suggestions for other meta videos, let me know. Before we go, I'd like to thank my ladyfingers in waiting who support me and allow me to continue to do this. A massive thank you to the current right now, February 10th, 2026 ladyfingers in waiting, Michgal2189, Omimi, Visa, Annette, Orion, Dorcas, Yungumo, Crabjail, Valentino, Lady Lunarine, Ukaku, Dorcas, 2, Farafo, and Yosubek Kiseki. Thank you guys, and I'm Kiryu. If you'd like to become a ladyfinger in waiting yourself, I have memberships here on YouTube. Perks include getting videos early and, of course, the thankies. If Twitch is more of your style, I have subs over there, which get you exclusive live streams. And if you made it this far, thank you too! I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, or whatever you're having, and yeah, I'll see y'all later!